They began to see the lioness's presence as a threat, and so they
Great Zimbabwe is a ruined town, constructed from the 11th to the 14th century, that was once the capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe. The 1,800-acre enclosure housed just 2% of the local population, despite its capacity for many more, and was a royal palace for the Zimbabwean monarch. Its 30-feet walls served as a symbolic show of elitism. The sculptures decorated in bird of prey and crocodile symbolism are seen as emblems of authority and references to the concept of divine kingship. The region's original source of wealth.
they cast it off.
The region's original source.
They kept the cab just in case they were attacked. They raised her so they knew she would be loyal to them.
The region's original source of wealth came from cattle farming, but a shift towards mining activities around the 13th century resulted in increased trade abroad and the beginning of exploitation in ivory and gold. These developments coincide with new political and economic structures and a shift towards state power in the hands of the elite.
On her own, the lioness struggled to find food, but the endless rivers that had kept the lioness from her kin had now drawn back, and she decided to cross to the land she had known before. She didn't want to leave the cave with the same creatures who had killed her siblings years before, and so one night, having bribed one of the jackals, she woke her cab and told her they had to leave. This young cab, though similar in color and shape to her mother, had never thought of leaving, and the lioness's words, which spoke so much of home, were strange and confusing to her. She saw the jackals as her kin and couldn't imagine any other existence. But her mother knew all of the ways in which her kid felt different, and reminded her that here, every day, she was both cared for and restrained, humored and yet feared, because they would never think of her as their own. The cub was curious of a place where she would see others like her, and so when the lioness left, the cub went with her. But she soon became afraid of what they would find ahead, and so she called to an eagle flying overhead. The eagle came closer, and the cub told him, "My mother has led me away from the place of my birth and wants me to live in a faraway land with creatures I have never met. Should I follow her?" The eagle asked, "If you left now, what would you go back to?" When the cub told him that she believed the jackals had always fed her well, but she knew little of how to fend for herself, the eagle replied, "It is a mother's duty to care for her child until they reach independence. Stay with her until you have no need to follow anyone." And with that, he flew off. The cub continued traveling with her mother, but was unhappy with the eagle's decision. And so when they came to a dense forest, the cub called to a baboon in one of the trees and asked her, My mother has led me away from the place of my birth and wants me to live in a faraway land with creatures I have never met. Should I follow her? The baboon asked, "How much do you know of the place you are headed?" The cab replied that she knew more of the jackal's way of life, and her mother's stories and habits seemed strange to her. The lioness argued that her cab should stay with her until she was independent, but the baboon answered, "Independence means deciding your own path. The only family she knows is back the way you came, and their ways have been safe for this cab. Go to them." But before the cab could turn back, the lioness convinced her not to make such a long journey on an empty stomach. They soon came to a wide but shallow river where a crocodile was thrashing around trying to catch a meerkat. Knowing that the crocodile would attack them as soon as they stepped in the water, the lioness said, "My cab and I are looking for food. If you let us cross the river, we will share our meal with you." The crocodile replied, "How do I know I can trust you?" "My cab is young and cannot take care of herself," said the lioness. "Let me go and hunt, and I'll give you the lion's share in exchange for her safe crossing." The crocodile agreed, and the lioness splashed to the other side, quickly vanishing amongst the grass. While she was gone, the cab explained to the crocodile her confusion over whether or not to stay with her mother. "This is the way home." That means home, and mentioned that she knew nothing of living as the lioness had.
It's too wide. Where's your faith?
The crocodile considered the cab's dilemma, and with his hunger growing, he cunningly told the cab,
"The lions who eat the most don't share it. They steal it and keep it for themselves. Help me to get all the food the lioness brings, and I will share it with only you. You can leave with more than just my leftovers and live as you please."
"How?" asked the cab.
"Tell her to throw it all in the water so you can cross, but don't move. Then, when I lay the meat by the water's edge, lean forward and take what I offer you."
The cab agreed, and when the lioness returned, dragging a plump zebra calf behind her, the young cub did as the crocodile had asked. The lioness was hesitant, but laid the meat in the river, and the crocodile grasped a large chunk and glided towards the cab. He laid the portion in the shallows and waited. Just as the cub put her front paws in the water and extended her neck to bite into it, the crocodile lunged forward and dragged her down into the water with his large jaws. The lioness rolled and leaped forward to fight the crocodile, but it was already too late. The crocodile crawled onto the riverside where the cab had been and disappeared through the tall grass. From across the river, the lioness heard him yell that, "When you live between two cultures, there is always danger of losing yourself in the abyss between them. If all you know is your oppressor's side of the river, you will never find your way back."